The Puritan Age, 1600 to 1660. Part-05. 4. John Milton, 1608 to 1674. Milton was the greatest poet of the Puritan age. And he stands head and shoulders above all his contemporaries. Though he completely identified himself with Puritanism, he possessed such a strong personality that he cannot be taken to represent anyone but himself. Paying a just tribute to the dominating personality of Milton, Wordsworth wrote the famous line, "Thy soul was like a star, and dwelt apart." Milton as a poet. Though Milton praised Spenser, Shakespeare, and Ben Jonson as poets, he was different from them all. We do not find the exuberance of Spenser in his poetry. Unlike Shakespeare, Milton is superbly egoistic. In his verse, which is harmonious and musical, we find no trace of the harshness of Ben Jonson. In all his poetry, Milton sings about himself and his own lofty soul. Being a deeply religious man and also endowed with artistic merit of a high degree, he combined in himself the spirits of the Renaissance and the Reformation. In fact, no other English poet was so profoundly religious and so much an artist. The last Elizabethan. Milton was a great scholar of classical as well as Hebrew literature. He was also a child of the Renaissance and a great humanist. As an artist, he may be called the last Elizabethan. From his young days he began to look upon poetry as a serious business of life. And he made up his mind to dedicate himself to it, and, in course of time, wrote a poem which the world would not let die. Early period. Milton's early poetry is lyrical. The important poems of the early period are The Hymn on the Nativity, 1629. L'Allegro, il Penseroso, 1632. Lycidas, 1637. And Comus, 1934, the hymn, written when Milton was only 21, shows that his lyrical genius was already highly developed. The complementary poems, L'Allegro and il Penseroso, are full of very pleasing descriptions of rural scenes and recreations in spring and autumn. L'Allegro represents the poet in a gay and merry mood, and it paints an idealized picture of rustic life from dawn to dusk. Il Penseroso is written in serious and meditative strain. In it the poet praises the passive joys of the contemplative life. The poet extols the pensive thoughts of a recluse who spends his days contemplating the calmer beauties of nature. In these two poems, the lyrical genius of Milton is at its best. Lycidas. Lycidas is a pastoral elegy, and it is the greatest of its type in English literature. It was written to mourn the death of Milton's friend, Edward King. But it also contains serious criticism of contemporary religion and politics. Comus. Comus marks the development of the Miltons' mind from the merely pastoral and idyllic to the more serious and purposive tendency. The Puritanic element antagonistic to the prevailing looseness in religion and politics becomes more prominent. But in spite of its serious and didactic strain, it retains the lyrical tone which is so characteristic of Milton's early poetry. Few great sonnets. Besides these poems, a few great sonnets such as When the Assault Was Intended to the City also belong to Milton's early period, full of deeply felt emotions. These sonnets are among the noblest in the English language, and they bridge the gulf between the lyrical tone of Milton's early poetry and the deeply moral and didactic tone of his later poetry. The struggle against King Charles I. When the Civil War broke out in 1642, Milton threw himself heart and soul into the struggle against King Charles I. He devoted the best years of his life, when his poetical powers were at their peak, to this national movement. The Latin secretary to Cromwell. Finding himself unfit to fight as a soldier, he became the Latin secretary to Cromwell. This work he continued to do till 1649, when Charles I was defeated and Commonwealth was proclaimed under Cromwell's. But when he returned to poetry to accomplish the ideal he had in his mind, Milton found himself completely blind. Greatest poetical works. After the death of Cromwell and the coming of Charles II to the throne, Milton became friendless. His own wife and daughters turned against him. But undaunted by all these misfortunes, Milton girded up his loins and wrote his greatest poetical works, Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonists. Paradise Lost. The subject matter of Paradise Lost consists of the casting out from heaven of the fallen angels, their planning of revenge in hell, Satan's flight, man's temptation and fall from grace, and the promise of redemption against this vast background. Milton projects his own philosophy of the purposes of human existence and attempts to justify the ways of God to men on account of the richness and profusion of its imagery, descriptions of strange lands and seas, and the use of strange geographical names. Paradise Lost is called the last great Elizabethan poem. But its perfectly organized design, its firm outlines and Latinist diction make it essentially a product of the neoclassical or the Augustan period in English literature. In Paradise Lost, the most prominent is the figure of Satan, who possesses the qualities of Milton himself, and who represents the indomitable heroism of the Puritans against Charles I. What though the field be lost? All is not lost. The unconquerable will and study of revenge, immortal hate, and courage never to submit or yield, and what is else, not to be overcome. It is written in blank verse of the Elizabethan dramatist, but it is hardened and strengthened to suit the requirements of an epic poet. Paradise Regained. Paradise Regained, which deals with subject of temptation in the wilderness, is written, unlike Paradise Lost, in the form of discussion and not action, not so sublime as Paradise Lost. It has a quieter atmosphere, but it does not betray a decline in poetic power. The mood of the poet has become different. The central figure is Christ, having the puritanic austere and stoic qualities, rather than the tenderness which is generally associated with him. Samson Agonists. In Samson Agonists, Milton deals with an ancient Hebrew legend of Samson, the mighty champion of Israel, now blind and scorned, working as a slave among Philistines. This tragedy, which is written on the Greek model, is charged with the tremendous personality of Milton himself, who, in the character of the blind giant Samson, surrounded by enemies, projects his own unfortunate experience in the reign of Charles II. Eyeless in Gaza at the mill with slaves. Thank you.